Hello, I'm Bill Monroe, and welcome to episode 128 of 2 Minute Talk Tips, the podcast that opens with a practical public speaking tip in the first 2 minutes before getting into a deeper discussion about public speaking. Today's tip comes to us from special guest, Denise Galloni.
To record yourself giving a presentation in your home or in the living room, wherever you give it. If you don't have a presentation, just do a speech. Talk about one lesson you learned. Record it. After you record it, and people do not like seeing themselves on video or hearing themselves, and I'm one of those people, I do not like it either. I want you to watch it 3 times. The first time I want you to watch it, I want you to close your eyes and just listen. Whenever you just listen, you'll hear some of the nuances that you say over and over. Some of those filler words, phrases that you repeat over and over again. Audiences pick up on that. The second time, I want you to watch it with a sound off. So now you're concentrating on your body language. Are you always throwing your hands in the air? Are you pointing, which you shouldn't do when you're on the stage? Then the third time, just watch it as if you were sitting there watching someone you didn't know, a speaker. Is your message getting across? Watching it those 3 ways will really give you a great idea on what you need to work on. It's a great tip. And sometimes when you watch it, it's not as bad as you think it is. Sometimes we think, oh my gosh, it was terrible. And you leave the stage and people say, that was amazing. So watching it that way will really help you boost your confidence and realize that it's pretty good. It's not as bad as you think, and you did a nice job.
Stick around, and after the break, we'll hear more from Denise Galloni. Welcome back. One of the things I've seen over these past episodes, especially over the past year, is how childhood is not destiny. You see, some speakers started in grade school and they really just couldn't get enough of the stage time. Once they were in front of the audience, they were shining and they were thrilled and they were taking in all sorts of energy and empowerment from that. Others were kind of horrified early on, but they were able to ultimately get past it and even learn to enjoy speaking in front of a crowd. You see, your approach to speaking as a child is not your destiny in life. Public speaking is a skill that can be acquired later in life, if you choose to acquire it. That's how it was for Denise. Voted the quietest girl in her senior class, Denise Galloni started to come out of her shell and find her voice as a young adult. Today, her mission is to help others find their voices and become better communicators through her company, DG Training Solutions Incorporated, which she started in 2014. In fact, Denise has delivered more than 500 presentations across the U.S. and internationally. She's a Toastmasters Award winner. So now, let's meet Denise Galloni. Denise, thank you so much for joining us here on 2 Minute Talk Tips this week.
Thank you so much for having me, Bill. I'm really excited.
Awesome. But I really find it very interesting, the different things you've done, and your background is sort of quite extensive. But let's go back to the very beginning first. And what was your earliest memory of speaking to an audience?
Besides high school, speech classes, would probably be when I was taking a college class, and it was a speech class. And I had to do a presentation and really put together a presentation and get in front of the room and be great on it and be taped. At the time, it was video, so I'm dating myself here. But it was taped on a video, and I was able to watch the playback of my presentation. And that was kind of eye-opening. Because whenever you see yourself, it's not the same as when you're doing it.
Exactly. I think most of us we're familiar with that when we hear ourselves on tape or on, tape. I'm dating myself there too.
That's okay.
On recording, because we hear our voice coming through our heads rather than out of our mouth. But on video,
absolutely.
When you're speaking, you can't be aware of how that looks on video and how that's going to be, because you wouldn't be able to do anything. You don't have the perspective that the audience has.
Absolutely. It's completely different. So I would say that was probably my earliest memory of really speaking in front of people, besides, school, giving reports and that type of thing. But that just sticks out in my mind.
Right, right. And that's the other thing that I think is really interesting too, is that when I ask questions like that, what we end up hearing about is not so much the very first time somebody stood in front of a group of folks, but it's about the experience that sort of had an impact in some way on that
Right.
person. Other folks find that impact happen when they were 5 years old in that class presentation. But
Hmm.
going through those other presentations is fine, but it's that one in college that sticks out, that sort of sets you on your path.
Right. I still remember watching that and thinking, oh my gosh, why did I wear that? And why did I say that? Why did I do that?
And asking those why questions when they're not just negative self-talk is really about how you can start to understand what you're doing.
Right. Why had some of that negative self-talk also?
Oh, sure. We all do. I mean,
Right.
imposter syndrome, forget about it.
Absolutely. Oh my goodness. Yes.
So, with that negative self-talk and
Hmm.
with that imposter syndrome we're all familiar with, how did you get past being, the shyest girl in your class and really come to love speaking?
And that's really a funny story because I was the shyest girl of my senior class. And my senior class had about 80 people. And people will laugh now and they don't believe that. They think I'm lying when I tell them that. I have to show them actually the pictures of me getting this award. And I never said a word. I was just so withdrawn and just kept to myself and hardly opened my mouth at all. In fact, when I went back for my 20-year reunion, some of the people didn't even recognize me or remember me. That's how I was really in the background. When I got out into the working world after I graduated and got my first full-time position, after about a year or two, I realized that that's not going to fly in the real world. You just can't be like that. You're not going to get ahead. People were getting promoted and moving around, getting different things. And I was just stuck in the background. So I really had to push myself to try to speak more in my full-time position. And then that led to getting my master's degree in training and getting up in front of audiences and speaking, which was what I do now.
Awesome. Awesome. I think that's one of those things that a lot of folks are afraid to speak up at work, either because of shyness or because they don't want to seem like they're bragging. They just want to let their work speak for itself. But if you don't talk about the great work that you're doing, nobody is going to know that you're doing great work. There's no way they can know.
That's right. People say, well, I don't want to toot my own horn. Well, you have to because no one's going to toot your own horn for you. So you have to be the one to open up, especially in a meeting, open up and give your thoughts and input. And sometimes people are afraid that they're going to come off as a know-it-all. Sometimes they're afraid that they're going to come off as saying something that doesn't make any sense or it's not important or they just don't want to speak. But that's when I really started speaking up in meetings and at work. And that's developed my self-confidence because then people think you did have a good idea and you are valuable. So it's a good thing to speak up.
Yeah, one of the strategies that I found that can be helpful in that context or in sort of those networking conversations you have at those work events or whatever they are, is to even just set yourself a goal of, I am going to offer 2 comments in this meeting and then I can let myself stay quiet, or I am going to go and talk to 5 people at this cocktail party and then I'm allowed to let myself leave. But
Right.
setting those concrete goals can make it a little bit easier.
It does. And the more you do it, the better you get at it. I always tell people, if you're afraid to speak up, do something simple. Read the mission statement if you're in a meeting, or read the meeting minutes. You don't even have to look up from your paper. Just get in the habit of always speaking in front of people. Again, the more, like anything, like a piano, the more you practice, the better you get at it.
How do you coach other nervous speakers or shy people beyond that? Just commit yourself to doing it once a meeting to get past their own nerves when they're conducting their own presentations.
Okay. Well, I really drilled down to find out why they're nervous. When people tell me, well, speaking in front of people is not my thing, well, that's not really a reason. If I go to the doctor and the doctor says you need to lose some weight, I can't just say, well, that's just my thing. That's not going to make an impact on my doctor. There has to be a reason. Either I'm not exercising, I'm not eating the proper nutrition. There has to be a reason. So when I work with someone, I really try to drill down to find out what that reason is. Many times they're afraid to speak in front of somebody because they don't want to feel, again, like we talked about, like a know-it-all. They don't want to feel like people in the room know more than they do. Well, that's going to happen. Because people, you don't know everything. People are always going to know more than you in certain situations. Sometimes they're afraid they're going to forget, or people are going to laugh at them. So I really try to work with them to drill down to find why. Why do you feel this way? Once I discover that why, then we can really hit that hard and try to alleviate that.
That's sort of one of those core approaches to just problem solving. You can't solve a problem until you know what exactly the problem is.
There's something there. Something there. A lot of times they don't want to make a fool out of themselves. And I always tell them, anything that you could be worried about, I've done in my career. It's happened. And I've survived. You're going to survive. So just drill down, find out what that why is, find that why, and then you can figure out how to correct it.
And the other thing I think is sometimes interesting, if you know something about the work environment too, is to go down the path of, okay, great. So you're worried that everybody in the meeting is going to laugh at you. Tell me about the last time that happened in that meeting. When did they all laugh at the speaker?
Right.
I mean,
and I tell people, when you're up in front of a room, people have busy lives. They don't want to waste their time. So no one is in that room and wants you to fail. They want you to do well. They want to learn something from you. And you have something important to say, or else you wouldn't be in front of them. So have that confidence and just say what you need to say.
Excellent. So what are you doing in that 5 minutes before you take a stage?
Usually before I take the stage, if it's a small group, I'm walking around trying to meet as many people as I can. That's a nice trick, because whenever you're up there, you can meet those people that you met when they first came to the door, meet their eyes. You get a smile from them because they've talked to you. You know, they develop a relationship, so it's a little bit easier, especially if you're nervous. Right before I take the stage, as they're reading my bio or the description of what I'm going to talk about, I take a few deep breaths. Big important part I want to say is when you take those deep breaths, let them out. A lot of times people take a deep breath and they walk up there and they're ready to talk and they just hold that breath, and by the time they're done, they just about pass out. I usually take like 3 really quick deep breaths, and then I'm ready to walk up across the stage. I can walk confidently across the stage and then deliver my message.
And what I think is really interesting is that sort of greeting audience members beforehand seems like even the bigger accomplishment for the shyest girl in the class versus getting up on the stage, because getting up on the stage, in my experience, is a lot easier than going out and meeting with individuals that I don't know.
Well, it's hard. Some people have a hard time standing there and having everybody's eyes look at them. I know someone that starts their speech at the very back of the room and walks to the front of the room. So by the time they get to the front of the room, they feel a little bit more confident. I know someone else that just focuses on one person for a while until they start feeling confident. Then they start looking around the room. But just meeting people beforehand, again, people are friendly. They want to talk to you. They want to meet you. It makes them feel special that the speaker's talking to them. And it makes it a little bit easier for you.
That's awesome. And, finding all of these things that work for you obviously takes a lot of work, the drilling down into the whys, the figuring that out. But it also just takes time. It takes experience. You just got to get up on the stage and do it. And
right.
Toastmasters is a fantastic way to go ahead and get that stage time in a supportive environment. How did you get involved with Toastmasters?
Toastmasters is a wonderful organization. I've been in Toastmasters since 2007, so a long time. When I decided to go back to get my master's degree in training and development, I speak very quickly. So I knew I had to work on really slowing down my speech, especially if I was in front of a group. So I heard of Toastmasters. I went to the first meeting and I got hooked. And I ended up joining. Toastmasters is great because whenever you speak in Toastmasters and you could give the speech, or else you can take little small roles, but you're always speaking. Again, every meeting, maybe you're giving a timing report, something so easy. It's so difficult for some people that are afraid to speak up. They also give you valuable feedback. That's why I've stayed in Toastmasters all these years. If I'm working on a presentation, I might give part of it during a Toastmaster meeting. So then I have everyone there giving me feedback. What do they like about it? What do they think I should do differently? What didn't they understand? What didn't work? So it's great feedback. Not only are you learning to communicate, you're learning leadership roles, how to run a meeting. People think that when you're in Toastmasters, it's all about getting up in front of a room. You don't have to. As you said, in a networking event, you're speaking in front of people you don't know. So it's all the same. If you're a salesperson, you're speaking in front of people you don't know. So those are skills you can develop in Toastmasters. And I've been very fortunate. The program is leadership and communication. It's a dual role. Whenever you complete the whole program, you become a distinguished Toastmaster. About 1% of the people achieve that. I've had the opportunity to do it twice. So I'm pretty proud of that achievement.
Wow. How has it impacted your business?
Oh my goodness. It's impacted my business in a lot of different ways. As I mentioned, just being able to get in front of someone and do a dry run of a presentation, or at least part of it, or say, hey guys, I'm gonna do this 5 minutes of this presentation. It just doesn't seem like it's flowing right to me. Can you give me some ideas? Again, they're not there to criticize you. Say, oh, Denise, you're doing this wrong. You're doing that. They'll say, why don't you try doing this? Have you thought about this? So that's really helped me. Again, just the networking. I know people all over the area in these different clubs, different companies. They belong to Toastmasters. Toastmasters is international. It's all over the world. So you really have that bond. You find someone that's in Toastmasters. And I just really recommend it. I think that's the most important thing I've done for my business besides getting my master's degree.
That's awesome. And that also then easily gives you something that you can talk about in some of those other networking events when you find somebody else who's involved in the organization or is thinking about the organization. It's another touch point outside the core of the business.
It really is. And just to see and mentor people and see them progress from not being able to look to up to anyone in the room to stand up there and deliver a speech. It's really rewarding for me. I really enjoy it.
The other thing that I think you say there that is really valuable is the idea of of sharing a part of a presentation that you're doing. Because what I think is really helpful there too is that now you're talking to an audience that may be outside your company, maybe outside the field that you would normally do business in, which helps clarify things in your talk. Because as we're talking, we end up including industry jargon, industry ways of thinking, and we ignore the stuff that we think is just super stupid and basic that everybody knows, so we don't need to spend time there. But you talk to a separate audience, and they don't know that stuff, and they're going to let you know that they don't know that stuff.
Right, and they do. They'll give me some feedback. They'll say, you use this acronym. What does that mean? Well, I thought everybody knows what SEO means. No, you can't assume that everybody knows that because people don't know that. And if you're not relating to the audience, then you're going to fail up there. You can give the best presentation, but if you're not relating to that audience, it's not going to go over well. And they'll let you know it by their actions or what they do.
Right. They're not going to laugh you off the stage, but they're going to go back to their email.
They're going to be on their phones. They're going to be texting, checking their email, talking to their neighbor, shuffling through papers. You'll know. You can tell when you're up there if the audience is engaged or not. Are they taking notes? Are they watching you? Are they laughing at the appropriate times when you say something funny? You want to make sure you get that laugh. So that's why it's really important to be able to relate to the audience. And sometimes people have a hard time doing that.
So you've been able to, get a lot of business benefits from Toastmasters and applying that. And speaking continues to be a major part of your business today. Obviously, as a trainer, my background is also in training and product evangelism. Speaking is a very important part, and it's probably one of the most fun parts of the job that I think. But how else does speaking support your business today?
I think the most important thing about speaking is getting your message across. And as you said a little bit while ago, Bill, we have to think about the audience. Are they going to understand what you're talking about? Sometimes we put these presentations together and we think, oh, we know what it is. But it's hard sometimes for the audience to know what it is, especially if they haven't been in the industry long. So speaking really is a huge part of my business. It's the most part of my business. I do a little bit of coaching, but mostly it's speaking. It's getting out there in front of different people, different groups, stepping out of my comfort zone. Doing these podcasts. Again, this is public speaking. I don't see you and you can't see me, but this is public speaking. Everyone's going to hear this. So all these different things. I also have a TV show I started producing and hosting about a year ago, almost 2 years now. Speaking is a huge part of that because I have to be in front of the camera and interviewing different people. So speaking really is very important to me.
TV is one of those things that it's got its own beast, but the core of what you're doing is still got to be the same. It's about your message. It's about the story you want to tell. It's about figuring out how you can connect with an audience to make sure that they're going to come back again.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. There's a lot of different competition on TVs, or as you know, as podcasts. You have to make it relatable to the audience and make them want to listen. If not, they'll just switch to something else.
So what is your TV show about?
My TV show is on community TV. It's called Empowering Women. I really enjoy helping women, inspiring them, and empowering them just from my story to where I am today. So it's a monthly half-hour interview show. I bring two women on the show to give information out to empower the audience. Sometimes it's motivational, talking about their journeys. Sometimes it's how to build their business, how to get their name out there. It's just, I had an attorney on talking about small businesses and how to get that started. So any type of information that I can give out to help empower someone and help them a little bit, because it's really rough. Sometimes it's rough if you're starting a business. It's rough sometimes women are in difficult situations and they may be looking for just that one thing that you can touch someone and they can learn something or be inspired to think, well, someone did that. I can do that as well.
And what's really key there is that you talk about these different types of things they come on and do, and maybe they're sharing tactical information, maybe they're sharing, what they did to get where they are. But as you sum it up, what's really really resonating there is that it's that personal connection they feel. It's the power they take from the story rather than the bullet points of the steps.
Right. Exactly. When you start hearing some of these stories, these women that come on there and tell their stories, I just look and think, oh my gosh, they've overcome so much. And here they are doing very well. And you never know, that might touch someone that might be watching that. That's at home in a difficult situation. And here's this woman telling the story about how she got out of that difficult situation, or what resources she had. People don't even know sometimes what's out there. So I really think it's important, and I really enjoy doing that. And again, speaking, it's in front of people.
Absolutely. And another aspect of that and of the on camera work that you've done and that you support is that you also create or consult on a lot of different training videos. And training videos are, that is its whole separate genre of helping to educate folks remotely on a specific initiative from the company. Some of them are done really well, some of them are done really badly. Some of them are done in such a way that they end up going viral on YouTube for all the wrong reasons.
Mm-hmm.
So what makes an effective training video?
Well, I think when we talk about training, training has changed a lot in the industry. And you were saying that you're a trainer. Years ago, training was sitting in a room, in a classroom style room, for maybe a day or two, listening to someone talk about your new job, this job that you're going to be doing, or what duties you have, or how to do things, procedures. It's all different now. People don't have time to do that. Companies don't have time to have their employees sit there for 2 days. So training videos are really key. The nice thing about a training video is you can do this video, people can watch it, new hires can come in, they can watch the video. So you're always constantly training somebody. You asked me what makes an effective training video. A couple of things that I like to do make it an effective training video. I think sometimes videos are too long. Sometimes people think that all this information is important. They have to know all this information at one sitting. Number one, it's really hard to retain all that information. If you think back in those days when you sat in an all-day training, you'll remember a few things. You're not going to remember all those important points unless you go back and look at your notes. So at times we make these videos too long. I think they should be short. Instead of having a 40-minute video, I'd rather see 4 10-minute videos. It's a lot easier to sit down for 10 minutes, watch a video, and retain something than to try to carve out 40 minutes of your day to sit there and watch a training video. Also, as you said, some of these videos go to YouTube and go viral for all the wrong reasons. Doing a video or doing a podcast, getting in front of a room, it's all different styles of training. You can't use the same style. And that's a mistake people make. They talk as if they're talking to an audience, and you're not really. You're talking to that one person that's watching that video. So you want to make your message clear to that one person that's watching your video. You want to have a clear, concise message. I did a lot of videos for electronic health records training. And those are probably the most difficult videos I did because I had to remember someone had to watch that. Then they had to click the button that I was telling them. So I had to wait for a couple of seconds, pause. And then I said another step. Then they had to click that button if they were following along. So it's really a skill doing that. You just have to do it by trial and error till you find, I guess, your groove of doing it. But completely different than speaking on the stage, doing the training videos. But again, I really enjoy it. And I think a lot of times that the videos can be edited a little bit more also, make them real concise. I cut a lot of my downtime. I did a training video for a client. When I went in there to meet with the client, they said, well, how come when you hit that button, it takes 2 seconds? When I hit it, it takes 35 seconds. I said, well, I cut that out in the video because no one wants to look at a video for 35 seconds, not moving. And he said, oh, okay, we thought there was something wrong. You want to be aware of people's time. So I like nice, short videos. Big thing right now, not really training videos, but Facebook videos. Facebook Live videos. If you look at them, they're a minute or two long. If it's a minute or two, I may click on and watch it. If it's 15, 16, 20 minutes, I'm not going to watch it.
Right. I think that's one of the things that's really interesting. We've been trained that, whether it's Facebook videos or whether it's videos that we're watching on YouTube, once we look at that how long that video is going to be, once it's longer than 2 or 3 minutes, I'm like, who has time for this? I'm not going to do that. But, it's amazing how we have trained an entire culture to look for those 1 to 2 minute videos.
Mm-hmm. And put the information in the front. When I click on a video, even if it's 10 minutes long, I want to get some key information first, those first couple minutes. I don't want to sit there for 8 minutes and have the information the last 2 minutes. I'm not going to stay on.
Right.
So even those quick videos, have that information first. Give the information at the beginning, the middle, the end, because people do click on the middle of your live video. Mm-hmm. Just a couple tips.
Yeah, absolutely. Excellent. That's actually why I structure this show the way I structure it, with that actionable tip right up front.
Right. People need that instant gratification. They want something right away. If not, again, there's a lot of competition. They'll move on to something else.
Exactly. And it's one of those things, too, when we look at competition is often broader than many folks like to think about it. When I was selling computers at retail, I had to remind people that our competition is not the other store selling computers. It's the other store selling computers. It's the store down the street selling snowmobiles. It's the store down the other way selling stereo systems, because people have different ways they can use their time. You're not just trying to sell your product, but also get people to dedicate their time to your field. Right.
Absolutely. I mean, and like you said, the training, they can watch this video, or they can pick up a book. They can listen to a podcast. They can listen to an audio book.
And I definitely recommend they go listen to podcasts. But
I agree. But there's a lot of different competition,
right?
As you say.
Absolutely. The other thing that I think is really key is that you talked about in those longer videos, there's stuff that they're going to have to remember, and nobody's going to remember everything that's in there. I think that applies not only in watching videos, but also in just everything that we do as speakers, since, it's been said that folks will generally remember about 15% of what they hear, and that as a speaker, it's your job to decide what that 15% is. But you have to go into it knowing that a lot of what you say is going to be forgotten.
Right. So that's why when I give a presentation, I rarely give out my PowerPoint slides. People ask me for them all the time, and I tell them, you don't need that. The key information is on a handout, a 1 or 2 page handout. You don't need 45 PowerPoint slides. A lot of them are pictures. So if they look at the handout 6 months from now, they're not going to remember what that picture meant, maybe. So I usually do is, instead of giving the handouts out, I'll give a handout and just have the key points on there in an outline form of my presentation. That way they can remember it, they can see it, they can refer back to it later on.
Excellent. Yeah, I think when folks have asked for my slides and I've given them, I think next time I do this, I really need to do with a more effective online tracking tool and links and things like that, because I don't think anybody ever actually goes back and looks at them.
No. They'll take them because they want them. They want to refer back to, again, we're all busy. Yeah. They may have the best intention of referring back to that 6 months from now, Bill, to remember what you said, but then things come up. Other things come up. There's other seminars, other workshops. They have other handouts, and you don't get back to it.
The other thing that I think is really interesting too is when you talk about how learning has evolved and how video has evolved and become integrated into here. It used to be more a case that you had your training, maybe you had your classroom session, and then you had your videos and you had your video library, and you had to pop the video cassette into the VCR and watch through the whole thing. And like I said, if it was too long, you weren't going to remember. And you talked about having to then pause for somebody to click a button. But that's, I think, one of the more powerful things that we're seeing now with the evolution of e-learning is that videos today are not only the standalone product they used to be, they're integrated into everything else and those live demos. So the newer platforms will actually let you create those separate videos that may be 10 or 15 seconds long for each step of a process. So you no longer need to wait in the video for somebody to press a button. You just let them press the button and the software will trigger that as the cue to start the next video.
Right. There's a lot of element systems out there that do that. Companies use them. And that's probably the best, because that way the person is doing it at their own speed. They don't have to pause it or go back. What did you say a little while ago? Let me go back a little bit. And then you go back too far. Then you hear something twice. Now you're wasting more time. So really the LMSs, they really help because people can go at their own speed. Once they click that button, it takes you to the next screen. And then two, you can always go back and see who finished this course. You can do the reports. How far did they get? Did they just click through all the screens, or they actually do it? Click on the buttons. So it's a whole different way of training those videos.
Right. And the other thing there too, when you talk about did they actually go through and do it with those interactivities, it forces people to go ahead and interact with your tool rather than having them just play the video on their second monitor in the background while they do their email.
Yeah. And we know that happens. I mean, it happens because people are busy. There's only so many hours they cram that day with all that work. But yeah, you want to make sure by doing that and having them click along and follow along, answer a question, even a simple, easy question. I always say you could just ask something you just stated. Is the sky blue? The sky was what color? And type blue, pick blue. You know that they're paying attention and they're following along.
Right. So, I mean, you've been doing this. We've been talking about these platforms, and the things that are happening in e-learning are really amazing. And the tools that we have today that let us go ahead and track individual things like worker productivity and do the follow-ups and keep track of who's done what, starts to get us to the point where we can finally do a more effective job of figuring out the ROI on internal corporate training, which is always the big challenge. How do we prove that it was worth the money? And on a side note, it always reminds me of, I think it was the CEO of Procter & Gamble many years ago, who said, "I know that half of my advertising dollars are wasted. The problem is I don't know which half." But we've talked a lot about these platforms, but you've also facilitated directly a wide array of courses. So how do you balance the need to be an effective trainer in a course with the need to be a subject matter expert? Because you can't be a deep expert on everything when you're talking about a bunch of different stuff.
You're right. And I get that question asked a lot. What do you know? Are you the subject matter expert in this field? And most of the times my answer is no. But that's okay because I don't need to be the subject matter expert. I'm working with those people in a company. So they're giving me the information. They're answering my questions for me. They're helping me sometimes put it together or put the information I need in there. Then all I need to do is just go and deliver that information. As I always give the example, I don't know how to change a carburetor. I'm not even sure what a carburetor is in a car. But I can teach you how to do that if I have the proper information that someone gave me that. I can make sure that you understand that information. It's someone that loves history. They may love history, know every date that ever happened in American history. Maybe they can't teach it, though. It comes back to being able to relate to that audience and have them understand.
And we've all had that teacher.
We've all had that teacher. We've all been sat in that presentation, walked out and thought, I don't know what the heck they were even talking about because it was so over their head. So it is a fine line. I have to know a little bit about the subject. And then I work a lot with those subject matter experts. I ask my questions. I do my due diligence. I make sure I have the correct information. And of course, I go in front of them to make sure that the information is correct. Several times that I've done this, I've had someone from the company in the room with me. So if there were questions, there were detailed questions about procedures in that company, they're there to answer those questions. I'm there really just to get the information out in an understandable format that they'll remember and they'll be able to take with them back to the job.
And that's important because there is a special skill set that you bring as a trainer, that there's a reason the subject matter expert isn't just up there dumping out the data that they know.
Right. And again, we talked a while ago about acronyms and other jargon. And the subject matter experts, sometimes they use that because they think, well, everybody knows what this means. Well, everybody sometimes doesn't know what that means. And I'd rather stand up there and use that acronym and say, and if you don't know, it means, and just say that the whole room may know that, but maybe they forgot. It makes them feel more comfortable understanding it. Because what happens if someone starts giving you information and you don't understand or you miss the first couple of points, you're lost for the whole thing. It's really hard to catch up and understand what's going on because you keep thinking, what did she mean when she said that? So that's why it's good to have the subject matter experts involved in the training, but sometimes it's better to have someone come in and who actually knows how to talk to people and train to deliver the finished product.
Absolutely. And that outsider perspective really does also provide extra value to them as you're going through the content.
Because they'll give me the information and they'll look at me and I'll say, I have no idea what this even means. And they'll explain it again. I'll say, and I still don't understand. Come down just a little bit further to my level. What are you talking about? Because that's what you want to do. You want to make sure that everybody in that room understands.
And you're also the one who's in a position of coming in from the outside, of being able to ask those questions and say that you don't understand without worrying about, well, is my boss going to find out I asked this basic question? And are the other folks in this room going to realize I don't know what we're doing in this company? And there's less pressure on yourself because you don't have that same imposter syndrome that a lot of students in a classroom can feel.
And that's exactly true. I think we've all been there where we heard something or someone asked us something and we didn't know what they were talking about or we didn't understand, but we didn't want to say anything because, again, our boss might think, well, you should know this. You've been doing this for how many years? How come you don't know this? We have that fear of not knowing, losing our jobs maybe. That's a big fear. So that's why I try to make it's so simple that everybody in the room can understand it.
That's awesome. So what's been sort of the most personally rewarding presentation that you've done?
I've done so many. I've done over 500 different presentations. A lot of it's corporate training. A lot of it is getting in front of a room, doing professional speaking. I think one of the most personally rewarding presentations I did was actually last year. So it wasn't too long ago. And I spoke to a group of women, maybe 25, 30 women in the room. And I went through my why of, why you're afraid to speak in public and why you're afraid to speak up. And we went through this whole exercise. And I told them my story. Again, someone said, what's easy for you? And I was ready for that. So I told them my story. And I even had pictures in my presentation of, this is me getting the award for being the shyest person. And this is me now doing a TV show. And this is me in front of this huge room speaking in front of people. And when someone sees that, then you can think, well, if she can do it, she's not any more special than I am. I should be able to do that, or at least try to do it. So I think that was my most rewarding when I saw everyone watch that and look at that, come up to me afterwards and say, well, I never knew that about you. You speak so well in front of people. Well, yeah, but I didn't 25 years ago or 30 years ago. And so I really enjoyed that. I'm really seeing when you're up in front of the room, and again, as a trainer, you know this, Bill, you can tell when something resonates with somebody. When you're looking at people and you're speaking or you're training, you can see the light bulb go off. You can see them nodding their head. Oh, okay. Because you want to see, when I'm speaking, I want to see people nodding their heads. Because people don't even know they're doing it. But they're agreeing. Yeah, oh, yeah, that's right. Mm-hmm. They're agreeing with you. So you want to see that. You want to see that, that light bulb. You want to see people nodding their heads. You want to see people leaning forward, taking notes. You know that they're engaged. And that's when it really was during that presentation. So I really enjoyed it.
And it is amazing how obvious it is when that happens and that you can see as a trainer when you've been doing that for a while, that all of a sudden you see it click and you see it engage. The other thing I love watching for is when folks actually start taking notes.
Yeah. Yes. Then you know that you're providing some great information when people are writing notes, scribbling notes down, or they ask you, "Can you repeat that again?" They're writing it down. They want to make sure that's a trainer's joy because you're getting your message across. We want,
Exactly.
as speakers, again, whether you're training in front of a room, training information, or delivering a motivational speech, you want to have that engagement. You want to keep looking at that audience to make sure they're engaged.
And what I also really like about that story is what really resonated with that audience you were talking to was that personal story, that vulnerability, that authenticity, that this is where I've come from. It wasn't about a whole list of features or a whole list of detailed action steps. It was this story, this connection. That's how the message is able to actually connect with your audience, is when you can share that powerful, authentic story. And we all have those stories.
We all have those stories, and people remember stories. And if I'm doing training, I use a lot of pictures in my training. I don't really use a lot of bullet points anymore. I use a lot of pictures. And then at the end, I'll recap. One of my training presentations, I was talking about the power of having 3 main points. And I had a pool ball with the number 3 on it. So when you play pool, you have that number 3 ball. Later on at the end of the presentation, I said, well, how many main points do you have to have? And I had that ball up there. I said 3. So pictures, stories, people remember that. People remember that later on. They'll still come up to me and say, remember when you told that story about, and half the time I don't remember because I tell so many different stories, different people, different things. And that I really remember that. Or I remember that speech you gave 5 years ago. I thought, what? I don't remember doing that, but thank you.
Yeah.
People remember that because people, you never know what's going to relate to somebody.
Relating to folks, that connection, that memory, that's how you impact their lives.
Yeah, definitely. And that's the most rewarding thing about getting in front of a room and speaking.
That is great. This has been fantastic. So if somebody wants to know more about you or what you're up to, where should they go?
They can go to my website. All my information is on my website. All my social media links, I'm all over social media. It's DG, it's Denise Galloni, DG Training Solutions, INC.com. I also have a blog. If you sign up for my newsletter, and when you log on to my website, you'll be prompted to sign up for my newsletter. I'll send you out my free public speaking tips as easy as 1, 2, 3. So you can sign up for my newsletter. You can read some of my blogs. I have some of my shows that pull into my website. I have some other free resources. I also have a free online master course that's on there. It's going to be free for probably another 6, 9 months or so, called Presenting Like a Pro, where I break down a lot of these tips that we talked about today. And I help explain them, delve deeper into them, and help you present like a pro, no matter how often you do it.
Fantastic. And we'll also have all of those links over in the show notes over at 2minutetalktips.com. Denise, this has been absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much for joining us on the show this week.
Thank you so much for having me, Bill. I really enjoyed speaking with you.
The quote I referenced earlier, that half the money I spent on advertising is wasted, the trouble is I don't know which half, is one that I've quoted a number of times, and this is actually the first time I actually went ahead and looked it up and verified it. It's actually from John Wanamaker, a 19th century retail pioneer in the U.S. He has been involved with department stores, with all sorts of innovations in modern merchandising, and he's actually credited with inventing the price tag, which is not something I ever thought needed to be invented, but I suppose it did mark a cultural shift in how we shop and in how we buy things. And this also further illustrates the fact that the quest for establishing ROI, return on investment, in marketing and advertising, well, it's been going on for more than a century. You see, we're getting better at it today, and digital technologies definitely make it a little bit easier, but we still struggle to prove that which we already know, that marketing and advertising do make a positive difference for a business. So check out dgtrainingsolutionsinc.com to learn more about Denise's training programs and other resources. You can find that link and more at 2minutetalktips.com/dgtraining. If you've thought about exploring Toastmasters, check out a local chapter today. It's made a big difference in Denise's career. And you can find a link to the Toastmasters organization also over at 2minutetalktips.com/dgtraining. Share this episode with a friend or coworker by giving them the link 2minutetalktips.com/dgtraining. And of course, as always, don't get best. Get better. Thanks a lot. I'm Bill Monroe, and I'll talk to you next week.
Two-Minute Talk Tips is a proud production of the Currently Speaking Podcast Network.